quarterback has maintained a sense of humor despite the sorry state of affairs in Buffalo. But last Sunday against Cincinnati, Ferragamo's sunny disposition was sorely tested by both the Bengal defense and his own teammates. On a cold and dreary afternoon, there was a visible reminder that winter arrives in Buffalo 1 month before it reaches the rest of the country. There was one bright spot in the Bills lineup. That was the reliable play of running back Greg Bell, number 28. Bell's 14-yard touchdown run lifted Buffalo to a 7-0 second quarter advantage. But the Bills hold on to a lead about as often as a Buffalo weatherman predicts a warm day in November. Bengal quarterback Boomer Esiason hit on 2 scoring passes, while Larry Kinnebrew barreled his way for 128 yards and a touchdown, as Cincinnati prevailed 23-17. The loss dropped Buffalo to 1-8, guaranteeing that for the 4th year in a row they will not have a winning record. But you have to give their fans credit. They have maintained a sense of humor. That, along with their party spirits, should help them through another long season in Buffalo. The same storm that was whipping through northwest New York was more intense in Pittsburgh, where the Browns and Steelers battled it out in what was figured to be a defensive struggle. The conditions, like much of the play, were indeed sloppy. But a look at Cleveland's past performance chart shows that they have never won at Three Rivers Stadium. So despite the off track, this was a contest that ran true to form. Number 34, Walter Abercrombie, scored the game's only touchdown. Still, the Browns did have a 9-7 lead until the final seconds, when the jinx that has afflicted them for 16 years, along with a Gary Anderson field goal, lifted Pittsburgh to a 10-9 victory. While Three Rivers Stadium continues to be a chamber of horrors for Cleveland, the Seattle Kingdome has suddenly become a burial ground for the Raiders. Since switching their loyalties from Oakland to Los Angeles in 1982, the Raiders have not won in Seattle. And thanks to an opportunistic Seahawks secondary, that trend carried on. Taylor's 75-yard touchdown return was one of 4 passes picked off by a Seahawk defense that pressured Raider quarterbacks all day long. While the Raider pass protection was non-existent, the Seahawk offensive line was giving their quarterback Dave Craig plenty of time to sneak number 28, Kurt Warner, behind the Raider coverage. This was a day when the Raiders could do nothing right. Even when they had a receiver covered like a blanket, as Mike Haynes did here on Darrell Turner, they still came away empty-handed. The Seahawks crushed the Raiders 33-3. Although the Kingdome is indoors and well protected from adverse elements, it has turned into a swamp for the Raiders, where they can no longer easily tread. Diego Chargers had won just once in their last 13 games against a division rival. And the Denver Broncos saw no reason why they couldn't make that only once in the last 14 games and get a lock on first place in the AFC West. But it was the Broncos' own mistakes that prevented them from making that move to the top. Wright's fumble short-circuited a Denver drive, and San Diego capitalized in full when quarterback Dan Fouts teamed with Wes Chandler, number 89, for 2 touchdowns. The final Charger touchdown in San Diego's 30-10 win came when ex-USFL running back Gary Anderson took a pitch from Buford McGee and became the first pro player to rush for over 100 yards in a game in the same year in 2 different leagues. It is unlikely that Gary Anderson will have the staying power of Minnesota kicker Jan Stenerud, who has been in the same league for 19 years. And it was he who provided the difference in the Vikings' matchup against the Detroit Lions. The Vikings doubled the Lions' offensive yardage total, yet could manage but 1 touchdown. Tight end Steve Jordan's tumbling act brought the ball to the Detroit 1-yard line. And running back Ted Brown did the rest when he spun off his wall of blockers for 6 points. But the bulk of the Viking running game was provided by the diminutive Darren Nelson, number 20, who ran for a career-high 122 yards. Lions rookie coach Darryl Rogers had beaten Don Shula, Tom Landry, and Bill Walsh, but could not overcome the resourcefulness of Bud Grant's Vikings. As time ran out, Jan Stenerud's 28-yard field goal earned Minnesota a 16-13 win and put the Vikings 4 games behind the Chicago Bears, the same team that Packer quarterback Jim Zorn faced in his first start in over 2 years. While this game hardly bore the significance of the upcoming Geneva Summit Conference, the Bears' defense did their best to limit arms production in the Green Bay backfield. Chicago defensive tackle Dan Hampton, number 99, was the primary aggressor when he dumped Zorn for a pair of drive-stopping sacks, while line mate Steve McMichael, number 76, nailed Zorn in his own end zone for a safety. But heavyweights like Hampton and McMichael are dwarfed by the newest member of the Bears offense, halfback and a half, William Perry, number 72. The refrigerator sent a chill through the Packers secondary when he became the widest receiver in the NFL. With 25 seconds left in the first half, Perry went in motion right. Then he glided into the end zone, then coasted under a Jim McMahon pass for his 2nd touchdown of the season. Perry's catch left him just 691 catches behind Charlie Joyner in the race for the NFL's all-time receiving record. The touchdown put the Bears on top 7-3, a lead that lasted 10 minutes before Jim Zorn spotted running back Jesse Clark with a 55-yard scoring pass. In what was the Bears' toughest game to date, the Packers took a 10-9 lead into the final period until Walter Payton scored the game winner from 27 yards out. With so much attention being lavished on William Perry, it is easy to forget that Walter Payton remains the Bears' vital constant. And on Sunday, number 34 responded with his best day of 1985 when he ran up 192 yards in the Bears' 16-10 win, as the Bears remain the league's only undefeated team. Atlanta, the Falcons worked on firming up those flabby muscles, but against the Washington Redskins, all they could muster was an exercise in futility. With a perfectly timed block by Don Warren, number 85, George Rogers was on his way to making people forget that injured John Riggins was out of the lineup. The NFL's top rushing offense ground out 307 yards, their highest total in 34 years. Even Joe Theismann contributed to the historic cause with an 11-yard sprint. Theismann entered the game as the NFC's lowest-ranked passer, but displayed rejuvenated form with a 34-yard touchdown pass to Art Monk, number 81. But Washington adhered to the adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and continued to utilize the handoff, their most devastating weapon of the day. Keith Griffin, number 35, shattered the Falcons for 164 yards, a greater output than his 8 previous games combined, as Washington demolished Atlanta 44-10. The Redskins are quietly chugging along at 5-4, only one game out of first in the NFC East, while the Rams are trying to rebound from last week's loss to San Francisco, which brought their undefeated season to a screeching halt. Los Angeles got back on the winning track by derailing the hapless New Orleans Saints with 9 quarterback sacks. Thus far this season, the Ram defense has carried more of the load than Amtrak. But the L.A. offense finally hit pay dirt as Eric Dickerson recorded his first 100-yard game in 6 weeks. Peter Brock showed the form that was expected of him when he was imported from Canada, as he tossed 2 touchdown passes, including a 29-yarder to Tony Hunter, number 87. Los Angeles had a cakewalk with a 28-10 victory, just as in Houston, quarterback Warren Moon effortlessly engineered an offensive attack, which certainly didn't look like the lowest ranked in the NFL. Number 40, Butch Woolfolk, ran for over 100 yards and rallied the Oilers to a 20-6 third-quarter advantage. Kansas City appeared listless on defense, and their offense exhibited a little snap as well. When quarterback Bill Kenny got a handle on the ball, he was quite effective, throwing for 2 touchdowns. But it was too late as the Oilers squeaked out their 3rd straight win, 23-20, leaving a logjam in the AFC Central, that bastion of parity, where each team is tied for first or last at 4-5. Meanwhile, at the Hoosier Dome, the Indianapolis Colts experimented with Jane Fonda's new workout, but what resulted was a work over at the hands of the New York Jets. Quarterback Ken O'Brien made the Colts feel the burn as he passed for a career-high 3 touchdowns. Wesley Walker, number 85, gave the defensive backs a thorough aerobic test, while number 99, Mark Gastineau, recovered from a broken thumb, limbered up the Colt offensive line with some moves not even Jack LaLanne could master. New York tallied 6 sacks, but it was the number 1 rushing offense in the AFC which elevated this game from workout to blowout. Despite a battered back, Freeman McNeil, the NFL's leading rusher, totaled 149 yards and set a good example for Dennis Blygen, number 23, who notched his first pro score. This 28-yard run iced the Jets' 35-17 victory, their first season sweep over the Colts in 4 years. With the best record in the conference at 7-2, the Jets look quite fit and are primed for a fight with the Miami Dolphins this Sunday in the Orange Bowl. To leave home without their American Express cards, the Miami Dolphins forget something very important when they take to the road. They forget how to win. The Dolphins arrived in New England last Sunday with a 1-3 road record. But behind Dan Marino's passing, their travel itinerary was highlighted by a quick visit to the end zone. A touchdown by Ron Davenport, number 30, climaxed Miami's inaugural possession of the game. 5 first-half Patriot penalties, including one that erased a 50-yard scoring reception by Irving Fryer, number 80, initially helped to make the Dolphins' stay a pleasant one. While the Dolphins didn't get to absorb much local color on their sightseeing tour of Foxborough, they did absorb 3 errant Steve Grogan passes during the first 2 periods. Miami led 13-3 going into the final quarter. But suddenly a Dolphin defense that had sported the impeccable appearance of a first-class tourist took on the tattered look of a hitchhiking hobo. Behind the running of Craig James, number 32, and the crafty play calling of Grogan, this contest was destined to result in yet another excruciating excursion for the Dolphins. The turning point was a 4th and 1 situation that saw the Patriots display a tightly bunched short yardage alignment, only to pull off a stunning maneuver. After number 27, Greg Hawthorne, caught the flea flicker, Grogan caught Miami off guard once again, this time with a bootleg that gave New England a 17-13 win. For the 4th time in 1985, a loss proved to be the only souvenir of a Miami road trip, as the Patriots won their 4th straight game since Grogan replaced Tony Eason as New England's starting signal caller. A one-time rival for Grogan's job, Matt Cavanaugh, is now a San Francisco backup. But last weekend, he started in place of an ailing Joe Montana and directed 3 touchdown drives against the resurgent Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were seeking their 4th consecutive win, an upset over the defending world champions, with the hope of proving that they belonged in the NFC playoff picture. But a series of mistakes made them appear as out of place in the San Francisco Bay Area as Humphrey the Humpback played. The Niners defense forced 3 fumbles and sacked Ron Jaworski 4 times. But the resilient Jaworski, who has bounced back from more beatings than Richard Nixon, kept the Eagles within striking distance when he and Mike Quick, number 82, connected for an 82-yard score. With Jaworski throwing for a career-high 394 yards, Philadelphia had a chance to narrow its deficit to 4 points late in the game. Facing a 4th and 1 on the San Francisco 5-yard line, the Eagles desperately needed a touchdown in order to position themselves for their 3rd come-from-behind win in as many weeks. But Jaworski, who had entered this contest with a string of 105 passes without an interception, was burned by the Niners secondary for the 3rd time of the day. Number 27, Carlton Williamson, produced San Francisco's 5th takeaway of the afternoon and 9th in 2 weeks, as the Niners secured a 24-13 victory that marked the first time this season that they have managed to win 2 games in a row. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be happy to win 1 game in a row. The Bucs have been frustrated by mistakes and heartbreaking defeats. But in the early stages of their encounter with the New York Giants last Sunday, they turned their frustration into fury. Bill Sims was sacked 3 times in the first half, and Steve DeBerg's 25-yard scoring strike to Jimmy Giles, number 88, provided Tampa Bay with a 13-6 halftime advantage. But Buccaneer halftime leads have had a way of disappearing as mysteriously as 10:40 forms at an IRS processing center. And paced by the running of number 20, Joe Morris, who gained over 100 yards after the intermission, the Giants ensured that a Tampa Bay halftime lead would fail to stand up for the 5th time this season. A 22-20 victory put New York in a 2-way tie for first place in the NFC East and suggested that Giant wins, like gridlock, overpriced restaurants, and pooper scoopers, are now becoming an accepted fact of existence in the Big Apple.